Welcome back. Continuing coverage of the Wisconsin primary election with the 8th Congressional District. That covers much of northeast Wisconsin. Republican Tony Wied, first elected in November of 2024. He is running unopposed for the Republican side of the ticket. And our Samantha Cavalli joins us live in the Fox Valley newsroom after speaking with Tony Wied earlier today. Samantha.
Right, Cammie, with no Republican primary opponent, Tony Wied's focus is already on November. Tonight, he'll be spending time with family and his campaign team, watching the results from across the state before returning to the campaign trail tomorrow. In a phone interview this afternoon, Wied says that his focus has not changed, meeting with voters across northeast Wisconsin and making his case for another term in Congress. He points to what he calls accomplishments on tax policy, border security, agriculture, and infrastructure, including $12.4 million in funding that he says was brought back to northeast Wisconsin. Wied also criticized the Democratic Party's policy direction, saying whoever wins tonight's primary will have to explain their positions to voters ahead of November.
Are they going to support the Democrat Party's lean and continued slide into socialist policies, that want to abolish the police and abolish prisons and raise taxes? Is that what they're going to stand for? I think whoever wins has to explain that to the voters.
Well, I asked Wied which of the three Democrats he expects to face in November, and he says he doesn't know just yet, but he welcomes a challenge and says that he's ready to defend his record in office. Cammie, back to you.
Samantha, thank you. Three Democratic candidates vying for the nod in the 8th Congressional District. Rick Crossan, Katrina DeVille, and Mark Scheffler, the winner in today's primary, will face Wied in the general election in November. Mary Piacenti joining us live from Titletown Brewing with more about these three candidates. Mary.
Rick Crossan is having a watch party here at Titletown Brewing starting at around 6 o'clock. But Cammie, like you mentioned, he's not the only Democrat vying for this nomination. He's facing up against Katrina DeVille and Mark Scheffler, both of whom will be having watch parties tonight in Appleton as well. But this is going to be a tough race for any of these candidates after tonight, though. A Democrat hasn't won this seat since 2008, and they'd be facing up against incumbent Tony Wied. But the main thing that differentiates these candidates is their stance on the Democratic Party itself, actually. Crossan says he's an insider and that he wants to help rebuild the party from within. Scheffler considers himself a progressive independent and thinks that Dems should be more welcoming to voters like undecided conservatives that want to get away from Trump. And DeVille, she's a democratic socialist that thinks America really has no left party as of right now. But all of these candidates agreeing on the fact that there should be a tax on billionaires, universal federally funded childcare, and free 4-year college tuition. We'll be here tonight as the results start to come up. But for now, reporting live in Green Bay, Mary Piacenti, Action 2 News.